Apologize for the late start. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but it's all settled now and we're ready to start. So to briefly describe myself in audio, I am an African American, well, Afro-Caribbean male. I have short black curly hair. I am of caramel complexion. I wear frames for my eyesight. I have over-the-ear silver headphones. I am wearing a red and black checkered shirt in an office chair sitting in my bedroom that has white walls. Welcome to No Hard Feelings virtual live Q&A. We have a very exciting panel for you tonight. We are joined by, and I hope I am saying this correctly, Benjamin Radjaipour. Am I?
That is pretty amazing. Yeah, you got it right away. I mean, it's like an English version, but it's great.
Thank you. And he plays Parvis in No Hard Feelings. Corey Dosti is live captioning tonight's event, and Eric Escareño is doing the ASL interpretation. Prideful is a film screening series by and for queer and trans people of color, or QTPOC. We strive to provide an open, safe space for the QTPOC community, and especially for those who are filmmakers and artists and art lovers. The 2021 Prideful series includes a panel talk, 10 films, and Q&As, all available virtually. The theme of this year's series is Stories of Queer Diasporas in the Journey in Search of Blank, bringing a timely yet universal conversation about migration, immigration, and alienation in queer diasporas. Good news for anyone who still hasn't had a chance to watch No Hard Feelings. You can still watch the film within the next 4 hours, that's until midnight. And tomorrow we open Welcome to the USA and the 2021 Prideful Short program for streaming. You wanna catch that. To get tickets and more information, please check out our socials at Prideful Film, that's full with 2 L's, or our website, prideful.org, also with 2 L's. Because we only have 30 minutes to talk about this amazing film, we ask that you type in your questions as the panel is happening using the Q&A box instead of the chat box, and we'll answer them coming down to the end of the program. You can also choose to verbally speak by clicking the raise your hand button and wait until my colleague Nabin gives you access to turn on your audio and video to speak. Please note that this event is also being recorded and will be shared with the public later. If you have any questions about the program or are having any technical difficulties, please ask the Prideful team in the chat or Q&A box. Benjamin, I am very excited to have this conversation with you tonight. I'd like to start by asking you to briefly introduce yourself, including the description of yourself and your background using your own words.
Okay. Also, you provided a literal description of background and foreground. Should I also do that, or is it?
It's fine because I know you have a background that you have right now. Yeah. So yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Well, I am Benjamin, and I'm an actor and for theater and film, and also sort of dabbling in music and different genres of performance and art. And I am Berlin based and an extended part of the Jünglinge family, which is the collective from which this film has come forth. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here. And I am wearing a pretentious outfit that includes a beret and a golden necklace, and my background is a alternative poster cover art for the film, which I thought I'd share.
It's beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. It's by the amazing photographer David Uzashukwu, and yeah, so that's me. That's the image that I'm that I'm sending you today. Yeah, and thanks for having me and us by that. And yeah,
thank you for gracing us with your presence. Thank you so much.
Of course. It's 2 a.m. in Germany. I'll just say that. So forgive any hiccups. I'm like I
We're
woke
with
up
you
for
on this
this.
journey. We're with you on this journey. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. We at Prideful enjoyed this film so much. It was a big standout. Like all of the films are great, but this one was a huge standout for me. I love foreign films, and this one was so beautiful, and your portrayal of Parvis was so beautiful, and your connection to the other cast members was so beautiful. So I just want to start off by asking what introduced you to acting, and what has your acting journey been like?
Um, Introduced. I think I mean I started theater in school via like a we had a like a school like a drama class, and I did that, and I had always been interested in acting and the performing arts, but it was more so through sort of the lens of, or like storytelling through the lens of film rather. And I knew that I've always been acting. Also as a kid, we did projects everywhere, kind of like we made films in different groups of there was like, I don't know what you call that in English, but we had like a school after school care or something, you know, where kids
Okay.
go that whose parents don't, you know, have to work all day. And
Yeah.
so we, wherever there was space for us to create something and, you know, direct and act and produce, we all did that. I mean, you know, very much kids doing that, writing scripts, nothing too professional.
No, but that's
But
beautiful that they had y'all doing all of that at that
oh yeah,
age.
and it's always, I think it's always been like younger people who were in those spaces or institutions that sort of, you know, like people at the time in their 20s that came to have like worked there for a year as a social, the social year after their school or something, and they really helped introduce us kids to some, you know, certain technologies that now are more accessible maybe to people. But back in the day, we, you know, there were no IMAX with iMovie, but it was like we would, you know, go to a place where they would actually like let us get in a room and like edit films and everything. Anyway, that's all just to say that the connection to sort of acting and film, it's always been there, but I never really thought about it as a real profession. And then after school, I had to I thought, okay, I'm going to I want to be a filmmaker, so I'm going to apply to film schools. But of course, you have to have all these like the application process is pretty intense, because you have to collect all these resources and materials and create short films and da 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 da. And then I thought, okay, maybe also one way to sort of get a sense of all of that and the process of filmmaking or theater is to do it by as a performer. And so long story short, it was never quite clear that I wanted to be an actor. That's all I'm trying to say. I was interested in the broader sort of aspect of filmmaking or theater. And then at some point I just decided it was really just because filmmaking seemed too difficult. And then at like 18, 19, 20, and then I just applied to drama schools, and step by step, and also watching more and more theater, I realized that that's also just like a classical training that could be interesting. And we have a crazy subsidized theater system here in Germany, and
Oh, that's
also Austria
beautiful.
and Switzerland. Yeah, so it's all these schools are not privatized, and most of these theaters are state driven. So there's this kind of prestigious high culture approach to being an actor. And so that's sort of where a lot of the journey, and also some of the, you know, joys but also struggles came from, because as you might imagine, these institutions, especially at the time of me applying like 10 years ago, were really quite white, and theater is really quite heteronormative still. And it's
Mm-hmm.
for it being such a staple in the culture that I sort of live in and work around and navigate, And it's changing, and the theaters that I am working in and have been working in for the past years are definitely different spaces. Maybe I chose not to work in spaces that, you know, shut me out in a way
Yeah,
or make me
yeah,
tokenize me too much. But it's been yeah, this journey, it's quite a up and down, and because it means so much to German culture and German sort of the cultural landscape. And then film, really, to be honest, I always wanted to make films, and I did short films all along, and also in while studying. But this is really my first, like, you know, feature film that was also screened in movie theaters and everything. So it's um, I definitely have a theater background, aspiring to work in film, but you know, you can't really control those things. So
right,
oh my
right.
God, that was a long
No,
response.
we love it, and we want it. Like, we want to hear from the queer people that are working, queer artists that are working in these films, because
Yeah,
part of the film series is giving that voice. As you said, you have the opportunity to choose which spaces you are in and to not be in the spaces that don't want you. And so we want to amplify the voices of queer artists who have been shut out for so long. So thank you for
yeah.
sharing that. uh
No, you're welcome. And maybe
yeah.
just to say that
Mhm.
when we're talking about choosing to work in spaces, I think that's also a crazy privilege. And I think as a like a second generation sort of German migrant, or like person with migrant perspective, it's I just learned so early on to sort of the art of code switching also in these spaces, and sort of really catering to whoever is in the position of making a choice to maybe get me in. And so that's not to sort of negate my talents or my aspirations or anything, but I think there's a lot of people like me, or you know, with who are sort of part of the um, I don't know, who are queer or POC or whatever, who might not have the privileges that I had, just by, you know, by the nature of being so German when it needed to be,
Mhm.
when I needed to be. So I'm just like a little side note to choosing. It's not as simple, and it's harder for people than for
Yeah.
me, and easier for other people. Yeah.
But and this is also something that was touched on in the film, right? Of
Yes,
like Parvis being able to code switch into German and hide the refugee part of himself to like having a somewhat easier life than his co-stars, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's not,
Speaking,
there is no refugee part to him in a way, because
yeah,
he's in this middle position of the generations. But yes.
right. Speaking of no hard feelings, what was the process like of like getting to do the film and like filming and all of that?
I was so our casting director, Raquel, she approached me in 2016, I think, and that was when they were really sort of trying to get financial support from different institutions and places, and they were writing the script, and they were so that's when Banafshe, who plays Banafshe, which is not her, that's just the it's just the same name, but it's not the actor is not playing herself. We got on board in that year, and I think I was in my last year of studying drama, and they really, I think they just found me by looking for actors, professional actors, or then also like theater and film students who spoke Farsi at the time. And that's really how they found me. And then we got together and sort of got to know each other. And um, there was also just this immediately a mutual understanding of sort of the politics of maybe filmmaking and performing and everything. And it was a really close bond really early on. And then from then on, it just went on, you know, with reading and supervising versions of the script, and then financial support falling through because that's what happens.
Yeah.
So we had like years of preparations, and then really even so we wanted to shoot in 2017 and then couldn't, and then in 2018 for us was like, okay, we need to make this film now, even if it's super DIY and much less money than we'd hoped for, but we can't wait for an institutional context, or like an external writer's room or something to decide when our material is relevant enough to be told. And there's also a certain kind of timestamp on these projects. I mean, there's like it's within a decade, I guess, of politics, but you can't wait like 10 years to tell this very specific story that you wrote in a year that's sort of also somehow tied to the refugee crisis that's happening here. And not to say that this is a film about the refugee crisis, it's not at all, but there's just a
There's a
certain kind of
connection
like
with real life.
exactly, and a
Yeah.
context, and also where you stand in life and where these characters stand in life, and it's just
And also,
so
from a writer's perspective, the words that you write are contemporary for that time. And so
exactly.
if you write it in 2016 and start filming in 2021, the words may not have the same impact or the same context.
Yeah,
Right.
and you are not the same. You are not the same person, and I know that if we made this film today, which is I think 3 years after we made it, um, because it also takes time for distribution and then Corona and everything. Yeah, you're just different people, and stories change. But anyway, I'm just like thinking about the context in which we're talking about this film, and I'm trying to cap in all these information. All this information, but yeah, so definitely I got on board because they found me, and then we developed a certain kind of love for each other, and then made the film.
That's beautiful, beautiful. And you're speaking of journeys. Um, I want to know like more about your journey with Parvis, and like if you see Parvis in yourself, or like how did you connect to the character when you were bringing him to the screen?
Um, it's interesting because it is a sort of, Faraz calls it autofiction. So it's, and people who will see the film, so the VHS material that you see in the film, and some people may know this, some people may not, that is actual material of Faraz's childhood. That's sort of his parents archived. And so there's this beautiful sense of telling, implementing and telling your family's story through this archival material that doesn't happen in any other public sort of space on its own, because those stories of uh, in this space specifically Iranian diaspora here, and people coming here and sort of working and building a life that's not really represented in a lot of sort of cultural contexts. So
Yeah.
there's this beautiful notion of Faraz telling his story and his family's story through sort of this implementation of actual footage of the family in their life. But of course, this is not a film about Faraz in a way. It's still a fictional story, and it takes from that, and it takes from his experiences and literally his sort of his life, but then creates sort of that's to help create a canvas for a larger story.
So his digitized photo, well, footage is kind of like
Yeah,
the springboard for the movie.
precisely. And
Got it.
so that, and in the film that is supposed to be Parvis. So it's just it's just this moment of sort of matrix glitch where this is it's actual footage from Faraz's family and history. And because Faraz's parents also play the parents in the film, but they don't play themselves, they play Parvis' parents. There's this beautiful sort of like as you say, springboard to tell the story. And with Parvis, to get to the point, we so I set this to sort of lay grounds for we knew from the beginning on that this was not going to be Faraz, and this was not going to be me, and we were we wanted to take sort of from both of our experiences, but ultimately create a character that's sort of larger than both of us, and also maybe built this sort of iconography of like a new, and that's not to say that there haven't been queer or POC icons in cinema, or we're not the first people to do what we're doing with this film, that's for sure. So that's not what I'm trying to say, but in this, you know, in this German cultural landscape in German theater, we thought of this like character that could be our hero and could be our pop star and could be our sort of vehicle of storytelling that we haven't seen before. And we as kids have not seen like a femme gay character on that's, you know, not white, or yeah, as sort of the protagonist of a story that we connect with.
Yeah.
And so there is elements of both of us, I guess, but it's ultimately a fictional character that sort of elevates what we bring to the character, and then sort of creates this yeah, we really just wanted like a Hercules, or I don't know, like Beyonce version of something, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like, yes, we are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors and the people that came before us and made our way, but because we are all individual and there's no one way to be queer or exist as a queer person, whatever movie we put out, we're becoming
Yes,
icons for whoever sees it. So I think that's
exactly.
beautiful. Um, we are close to the end already.
Oh
I
my
know
God.
we've been having a good time, but I just have like one more question. Um, you're talking about uh, your desire for filmmaking. And it's not to say that you're on the other side of your acting career. I'm pretty sure you have a lot more roles in your future. I'm speaking that for you. But are you pursuing, are you still pursuing filmmaking? Do you have anything in the works that you would like to share with us?
Not in terms of filmmaking. It's interesting that when you work in a when you work more collectively and you sort of, so I let go of this idea of sort of the creative genius a long time ago. So I don't have this like urge to like, I need to make a film, I need to write the story, but I do still love those forms of expression and art. And what's beautiful about working collectively is that you can just ping pong these ideas, and at some point we might, you know, someone might come up with a pitch that some one person might write or people might collaborate on. So, and then some other person might direct it, you know. So I'm definitely getting into that more, but without the sort of the pressure of I want to be a filmmaker, you know, that's
Mhm.
not. And honestly, I'm also like kind of losing that with acting. It's, which is not to say that I don't want to act or anything, but this idea of um, we grow up, and especially as kids who don't see themselves maybe necessarily on certain kind of platforms, there's this like compensation mechanism of like, okay, I have to do this now. I have to be really good at it, and I need to want it, and I really need to want it, because if I don't want it, and you know, that has nothing to do with race or gender or identity necessarily, because that's just the nature of industry, but that's a
Mhm.
different kind of layer to it. And so
Yeah.
I'm at that point in my life where I'm kind of like relaxing into what about it do I actually want to do, and what about it do I actually love. And to be honest, with these roles and future roles, you don't know as an actor. And it's like
That is
I saw
correct.
these interview I saw these interviews with this actor who did Aladdin, and he was like complaining about not getting any like follow-up roles. And people were like, he's just so, I don't know, he's just all over the place and he has to wait. But it's crazy, like you don't know what's going to happen, and when you're in a very specific kind of genre of body,
Mhm.
you don't know. So I'm at this, yes, I want to help make films and do all these things, but right now I'm just like surrendering to the chaos of life and see what happens, and write
Yeah.
my little notes here, make a little music there, see what comes.
That's the beauty of it. I think as queer people, we're tasked with being excellent or like great
Yes.
because we've had a history of being like shut down, of like hidden, of like put aside. So we want to shine. But I think it's also
Yeah.
important for us as queer people to just exist, right? To
Yes.
just be given that chance to exist and create from that existence and not create
Yes.
from this space of it needs to be great because it needs to be perfect because it needs to be so and so. So I thank you for sharing on that.
Yes, definitely. And to also really, really explore what it is about things that you want to experience. And not just because it's somebody else's dream or because it's, um, there's a certain aspect of it that's supposed to be important to you. Take a moment and exactly see what it is that you actually want to say. And but it's also all this like talking, for a lot of people it's not that easy, and especially in the beginning stages of getting into art or like filmmaking or theater, it's sometimes it takes that force of like, I need to be present, I need to be there and sort of be great at it to push you into it. I guess I don't want to take that from people because it's also a little, I guess, like very highbrow to be like, you don't need all that credits, just exist. For some of us it's not so easy to just exist and submit to
Right.
that, and sometimes a vehicle of some sort can help us come to that place of wanting to just exist.
Yeah.
But generally I definitely think that that should be our main goal, to not have other people's notions of what we are make us want to be something.
And I agree 100%. So with that, we have come to the end of this program.
Yes.
I want to thank you, Benjamin, for having this conversation with me, being so open, vulnerable with your story, with your experiences, with your hopes, your aspirations, everything. I want to thank everyone who joined us for this panel. Thank you to Eric Iscareno for ASL, to Corey Dosti for doing the captions for us, for my colleagues, Navin and Juhi, for being the most amazing colleagues and being the backbone behind the Prideful series. My name is Isaiah Alexander. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.